Okay, let's add some AI capabilities to our agents. So for adding AI capabilities to your agents, if you want to use LLM, you will need to decide what LLM you want to use, whether you want to use Google's Vertex AI, or you want to use OpenAI, or you want to use something else. For my examples, I want to use OpenAI, and therefore I need an API key in OpenAI. If you want to use, for example, a model from Google, then you need to go to Google and get an API key from Google. So for OpenAI, if you haven't done this before, simply go to platform.openai.com in a browser, sign up. It is a free account, so you can sign up for free. And then once you have signed up and you have logged into your platform, you will go to API keys menu, and then you will create a new API key and give it whatever name you want. For example, I call it ACP, and don't restrict your API key and create it. It will give you an API key. This is the only time you will see it, so copy it and then go to Visual Studio or to Terminal or Command Prompt if you are on Windows, where you want to run your agent server. So I am in Visual Studio. In this terminal, which has my virtual environment, I want to run my server script, so I need to put the API key in here. For OpenAI, if you are on Windows, use set command. If you use Mac like I do, just use export command. And then for OpenAI, the key name. And for OpenAI, the name of the environment variable is OpenAI, all in capital case, API key equal to, and then paste your API key in here. Now you can make calls to OpenAI. Okay, how do we do that? So ACP SDK doesn't have any capability to use LLM, and you need a AI framework for it. So let's go to server PI. This is in GitHub. You can see it if you clone the GitHub repository. Normally, you add the AI capability to your AI agents using a framework that is built specifically for creating AI agents. These frameworks include BAI framework that we will use in this example, LangChain, and so forth. Pedantic AI that I mentioned before allows you to directly access AI models, but it's not a full-fledged AI agent creation framework. And if you want to create an ecosystem that will work as a system in production capacity, you may better not use that and use BAI or LangChain or similar sophisticated frameworks. So for this lecture, as I said, I want to use BAI framework. So after importing the ACP SDK using the server and message classes, I can also import BAI framework. However, first thing you need to do is to install this library. So you can just say pip install BAI framework, and then it will install it for you. Very simple. For BAI framework, your Python version must be 3.11 and later, so it cannot be below 3.11. So classes I have imported is chat model. Chat model allows us to access an AI model, an LLM model. Chat means that you will enter a prompt and then you get a response. React agent is basically a class that executes the interaction with the chat model. And also the token memory is about the storage where the prompt and response is stored. So you already know that we need to create an instance of server for ACP, and then at the end of the code we call server.run. Then we need a function. The function will have a parameter of type message, and as you know, message has an attribute called parts, and parts is an array of message parts. That is why we imported message part. Then you call chat model.fromName, and then you provide the name of the provider, a colon, and then name of the model. The providers can be, for example, OpenAI, Grok, Vertex AI, Amazon Bedrock, and so forth. And then the name of the model comes from these providers. So if you don't know the name of the model, you need to go to these websites, for example, to OpenAI, and then see what models are available. Then you create an instance of token memory. Then you interact with the LLM using React agent. You pass your LLM instance. I don't pass any tools to it because I'm not modifying the response or request. And then you provide the memory. And then you do an agent run. So the instance of React agent that we create is in agent object. And then you call agent.run. Agent.run is asynchronous, so you need to await it. And then you pass a prompt. So a good practice is that when you provide a prompt, your prompt has to be very specific and basically ask the LLM to return a very clean and precise answer and not be very chatty. So for example, in this example, I want to create a dictionary. So I say, find the meaning of the word, the first word that I pass, be concise and return one sentence. So the response is basically asynchronous execution of agent.run, and therefore I need to get result, and then the result has multiple attributes, and one of them is text that returns the content if the return of the LLM is basically just plain text. To run this, we can say Python server py. And as I have already mentioned, ACP SDK basically creates a fast API for you. So this is a fast API listening on localhost port 8000. Now let's open the client. So the clients are essentially same for all the servers that I have created and we will create through the course. All it does, as I have mentioned to you before, imports the client because we are creating a client for ACP, and then async IO allows us to make the HTTP call through asynchronous operations. And then the input parameter for me is book, and the name of the agent is meaning agent. So the return value is a run object. It has an array of message. And as you already know, every message has an attribute called parts, which is message part. And if you want to get the first message part and then its content, you just call .content. To run this, we can say Python client py. And it says a book is a set of written, printed, or blank pages. So as you can see, we added AI capability to a simple agent that we had, and it also has ACP interface so that any other client can access it through ACP interface. The last thing I need to add is that a server can also be client. So if you create an AI agent that has ACP capability and basically runs like this, like an API, you can also import the client in it and make API calls to another agent that has ACP capability. So one agent can be a server itself and can act like a client to make calls to other agents and get information. So that is how a multi-agent framework works, and you can basically have interaction between different agents. But because all agents use ACP, you know that the response is always of type, for example, message, the request is always of type message, and what API endpoints exist